Welcome to Bullets Nation, the podcast by Bullets fans for Bullets fans. I'm your host, Tracy Malone, a Bullets member since we came back into the league 10 years ago. In sporting teams, players change, coaches change, and staff move on. But we don't, Bullets fans. We're the constant. We've been here since the early days, and we'll still be here when the next banner goes up. This is our space to talk about our team at length. No 30-second hot takes here. We're here for real hoops chat. We love this club, we argue, we cheer, we ride every run and we carry every loss. So settle in and suit up. If you're Bullets family, you're at home here. This is Bullets Nation. As always, I will tip off by welcoming my co-hosts, Scott Husband and Cameron Porluck.
Hey Tracy, hi Cam.
Hello there. A bit of an apology from me for missing both Throwback Tuesday and Trivia Thursday. Crazy couple of weeks and I completely lost track of my days this week. I promised I'll be back this week.
Yeah, it's been full on everywhere. Settle in for this one, listeners, because it's going to be a long one. So we're going to start with the first kind of thing that happened since our last podcast, and it was ask and you shall receive. We've been asking why Jonny Drama left his job at the Bullets. You've seen our hashtag bring back Jonny Drama. We heard it was to spend more time with his kids, which I didn't accept. Cue disco at Chermside on a game night. I thought maybe he was too busy and he refused the job. But on Monday this week, Jonny put up a post on social media saying clearly that the club wanted to go in a new direction.
It feels the club's management wanted to just put a different kind of stamp on the game day experience. I'm deferring to other people who have better knowledge and just appreciation of the game day experience.
You know how much I love asking questions, Owen. So a big question I want to ask both of you is, what direction do you think they wanted to go in other than trying to destroy the fan experience? Because that's how most of us see it at the moment.
For me, I feel like they've perhaps seen what other clubs are doing, trying to emulate what they're doing in the hopes that it might boost bums on seats. Perhaps they thought other teams looked a bit more professional than what our game day experience was. I use Sydney as an example. When you watch all their home games, there's a lot of what they do that I'm seeing what is trying to be implemented at our games now. The problem is we're not Sydney. The Brisbane fan base, and not just for Bullets, but for all of the sports, are very different to what you get in Sydney. I'm also not a fan of following what other teams do. I've always felt like the Bullets were the trendsetters, especially through those 80s and 90s. I'd like to see us try and get back to being that trendsetter instead of being the follower. And I thought we were doing that. I thought our product was a little bit different to the others, which made it ours. So to lose that is very disappointing.
I just have more questions. What we had when Jonny was there, also Adam, that whole combination brought a level of authenticity to the whole game experience. So why chuck it out the window?
It's a good word, isn't it? Authenticity. It did. It felt really authentic when Jonny was there. And that is because he is a professional. He is a man who's been flown all over Australia to do all kinds of events. And he was authentic because he loved the game and he was a professional at what he did. And maybe my first question is, who do we need to sack for making this big of a mistake? And can it be corrected? Can this mistake be corrected?
So maybe not sack, maybe them being told to pull their heads in a little bit. And so whoever made the decision, the buck stops with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day is a good day for change, isn't it? But I'm a little bit excited about this because if it wasn't Jonny's choice and he wants to come back, he's left the door open. That post was very professional. It was thanking for everything. It was clearly putting down all the things that he had been a part of and he loved about the Bullets. He mic dropped at the end, but he left that door open. And when I said, we're not done with you, Jonny, we as fans really want you back, he loved it. And he gave me the fingers crossed. So there is room. There is absolutely room for this. And so let's hope. We're open. We're open for it.
Classy of him, the way he responded.
Yeah, he's a professional. He's a consummate professional, and he's showing that he is ready, willing, and able to come back and to lift this game day experience up for us again. I've been speaking a lot about not having the Bullets spoken about in the NBL media, and this week we've been spoken about a lot. We're on the headline of everything, but we had to create drama and negativity to be spoken about, and that's such a sad place for the Bullets organisation to be. It's got that naughty child throwing a tantrum feel about it, and I don't like it at all. Coach Lash was interviewed on SEN during the week. I've listened to so many things this week, thanks to Scott sending them through in our chat. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen
Here's
to
a
that.
link. Here's another link.
Yeah, I've been building a lot of backstory research, which is so great to be able to come and deliver this information here. He was asked about the season so far, and he spoke a lot about adversity, how bodies find it hard to back up with short turnarounds, which we've spoken about. And those short turnarounds are the reason for our home game losses. And the whole league apparently is experiencing this, other than Melbourne United, is what he said. There was nothing new or different in the interview. I was hoping to get a better insight when you see them speak outside of press conferences. I was hoping for just a bit more, and I didn't get it. It was just more of an extension of a press conference of all of the reasons why we're not winning, which was a bit disappointing for me. I was quite deflated after listening to it. And then I listened to another thing Scott sent through, which was that reverse pivot podcast with Sam McKinnon. People, get your ears around it. I'm going to give you a little snippet of what I heard today that I think we all need to be abreast of. Sam is so great at telling us how things went for him. He speaks so honestly about what's going on behind the scenes, and he's very transparent and honest, which I love. He said he let the owners know how things were going, and things weren't going great back when he was the GM of basketball. And the owners asked him then if he wanted to coach, and he said very clearly, no, I do not want to coach. I just want you to know that things aren't going well and you may need to make some changes soon. He gave them a list of names on the email, and Justin Schuller was one of them. He says he was then also told by the CEO not to report back to the owners, which he found interesting. The owners were getting one message from the CEO the whole time, which is all he said. He didn't elaborate because he was cut off on what the message was that the owners were getting the whole time, and they were getting that message from the CEO, who was McLennan at the time. Sam got asked then by the owners if he could be the one to fire JD. And he said, hang on, shouldn't that be the CEO's role? But then said, okay, if you're asking me to do this, then I will do it. Then it got delayed, and then he did it.
He was just the messenger, really.
Yeah.
He was the messenger in all of it, and the plot thickens and it gets more interesting. He knew he was out of the role as they hired basketball advisor Stu Lash. Lash said Vandy can coach and you, Sam, can be Vandy's assistant. And Sam said, no, thank you. He didn't believe Vandy was ready yet, and he didn't want Vandy exposed like that. He was like, Vandy's not ready for that head coaching role, and if you throw him in here now, he's actually going to go backwards in his career. I'm not going to expose him like that. I'll head coach a couple of games until you can find somebody else. I'll do the interim until you can find a head coach, and that keeps everyone in their positions and everything going well. He got the team on side. He talks about each game that he coached. So you go and have a listen to that. He got the team on side and all to buy in. And he actually wanted to finish the season out to have that little bit of continuity, and then he was ready to hand the team over. He was then offered a contract that no one in their right mind would sign. So Sam knew that they clearly wanted to get rid of him. He said he'd go back to the GM role and Vandy could coach, and he knew then that his time was absolutely up. He still was very professional. He introduced Stu to all the right people in Brisbane, and he wanted the club to succeed. And the only thing he said to Stu, and the only thing he asked of Stu, he said, I know what's going on, Stu. Just let me know when it's going to happen. And he didn't do that. So that's all he's going to say on that. And it moved on. And that, dear Bullets fans, is how a former champion of our club was treated during that time.
Yeah, pretty sad, really, when you take all that in and see what happened behind those scenes.
But this was the moment of rebuild for our club. So we've rebuilt already on shaky ground when they were like, we're coming in, we're making changes, we've got this new advisor, everything's going to change from here. I don't like how it was handled because how you start sets the precedent for your organisation in a company chart. And I don't like how it was handled.
The most solid foundations.
Yeah, that's right. It's already a bit underhanded. And especially to someone with the basketball experience, knowledge, and love of the club like Sam McKinnon. That's the real bugbear for me, is that he did all the right things and handled it quite professionally, and he wasn't even given the opportunity of the respect of, okay, mate, it's happening now. We're moving in a different direction. And so after that, listening to that podcast, it really got me wondering, are we being impaired by not having a GM of basketball now? So let's look at those roles. What we used to have and mostly have had is a CEO and then a GM of basketball. And the GM of basketball is the one who builds the relationships with possible players out there. He looks after the contracts and he sits above those coaches as a basketball expert, and he sits between the owners and the coaches and players and manages that basketball landscape. And he's the one who holds everyone accountable there while the owners can't be here. My question is, why is there not now a brilliant, tried and tested and respected basketball mind sitting above these coaches? We let go of Adams, but after 3 other teams had signed imports, I think we took too long from the disciplinary action. We got half a decent game and then it flowed on. Go listen to the previous episodes if you haven't done it. He should have been gone a long time ago. And we could have, look at all the imports that have been signed in this league since then. We could have been seriously in that running had they moved earlier. So what do you reckon, gentlemen? Do you think a GM of basketball would have made this call earlier and done it differently?
Firstly, I just want to touch on Adams. I think we can all look at the signing in the first place and go, was it really a good idea at all? And even when it was, you can see there were times when maybe he should have been released at certain points, but a lot of those stages of earlier in the season, we simply needed the body because if we let him go, it would have been a lot to place on everyone else in the roster.
But if we had the contacts that they say we've got, we should have been able to move earlier and quicker.
Agreed.
It's not even about bodies. They got Dakota Mathias in there. So could they not have got someone else faster?
Like I think there needs to be a bit more adaptability, agility in decision making.
And they also said, I can't remember where I read it or who said it, that we've acted decisively in the last 24 hours and we're getting 2 new imports in. So it made this impression that we're being decisive. I don't know. I think it might be a little bit late for that.
I think the time taken in decision making is still too long at certain points.
And do you think a GM of basketball would have been able to make that sooner? Is my big question.
Short answer, yes. And I think a GM basketball operations like other clubs have would be beneficial. And if you look at people in a similar type of role at other clubs, particularly the ones who've won championships, at Illawarra, they have Matt Campbell. Tasmania has Darren Smith. Brisbane have a GM of finance, a GM of consumer experience, but not a GM of basketball. And of course, Adelaide has Matt Weston. And what was the big thing that Matt Weston did in the recent past? He signed a guy called Bryce Cotton.
I agree.
Perth have Danny Mills. Perth fans will probably say that they don't like the decisions he's made, but they're doing okay right now.
Yeah.
So I think all those clubs are probably good examples of the management structure is better than what we have in terms of we have a CEO, or the Phoenix have Simon Mitchell, and I think he's made decisions that have helped Josh King. Josh King has wanted certain things, and I think I heard Simon Mitchell say that there were certain locals that Josh King wanted to sign, but Simon Mitchell overruled him. He said, no, we're going to have these locals, not that one, something to that effect. And right now it looks like it's working quite well for them at the Phoenix.
I agree. Yeah. You've got to have that basketball mind sitting above those coaches who can just make that call when needed, being a bit more decisive, going, hey, this isn't working. We need to do something. Let's make a change now. Don't wait. We've got a CEO who has openly admitted he is not a basketball person. And to me, that hurts us in these types of situations. The only thought that I can think of as to why we don't have that GM of basketball is because of how things soured between the last CEO and our last GM of basketball. That's the only reason why I can think as to why we don't have that position currently.
But getting two new people would change a relationship, wouldn't it?
I get that, but maybe they just feel like it wasn't working for them having those two people, those two positions that in that previous iterance didn't work for them, and they've gone, no, we'll just stick with our CEO and he can do it all.
So they let Sammy Mack go,
Yeah.
and Stu was hired as a senior basketball advisor, very similar in roles, responsibilities, it would seem, but it seemed like that was their way of letting Sam go and bringing in Stu
So on that
from a certain point of
point,
view.
Stu was either sitting himself in the GM role or Stu said to the owners, we don't need a GM of basketball. Because if he's the advisor, surely that had to be his choice, the advice of the professional basketball advisor that they hired named Stu Lash.
Potentially.
I remember, because I'm friends with one of the coaches at that time, and I remember it was like, yep, he's having meetings with everyone. Yep, it's all happening. Yep, he's done this. He didn't even bother to meet with one of the assistant coaches at that time. Did not even give him the respect of let's sit down and have a meeting. As a basketball advisor, you would go in and you would advise the owners, because I don't think an owner landed in Australia during that time to come and see how the relationships were going.
No.
This is really interesting. I'm going deeper this week into what's going on down there, because I just really think things need to change on many facets because it's not working in many ways. It seems as well, on that note, which moves us into ownership, which is the direction we're going in now, because even Sam was communicating with our owners via email. This is an email connection to people in America. I'm just like, none of this is good. I'm not liking any of these communication styles that are happening. So the next question we must ask is, are we benefiting from having owners overseas who are not engaged in our team, like Adelaide, Sydney, Illawarra, Tassie, Southeast Melbourne, New Zealand, where you see owners at the game? I know the name of owners in all other teams except for ours, because ours I have to go look it up because they are invisible to us. And I think in our time since they've come in, we've done one Zoom call with them as members. Many fans, when they speak to me about the owners, they are very convinced that this team is a tax dodge for their development goals here in Australia. No one actually believes. I've been on the train of, no, they want a championship, but nothing they're doing tells me they do. So I'm off that train now, and I would like some more answers on that. What do you think, Cam?
I'm not too sure on the tax dodge thing. I know the main owner and one of the others that they own at least one other sporting team, maybe a couple other sporting teams. So in that respect, I'm still not buying into that. I get where it's coming from, especially with the Olympics on the way. So you can understand that type of thinking. I was looking into this over the past week because I was trying to see if any of them were actually on X or Instagram, primarily so that I could tag a couple of them in some of the rubbish that we're seeing with the Bullets. Sometimes it helps tagging them in those types of things.
Totally.
And I did forget that we do have one local owner. Don't ask me what his name is because I've already forgotten what it was. He
And he's not
lives.
showed up at a game.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him at a game at all, so he's pretty much non-existent. If he has been at games, it's not been acknowledged that he's there or anything like that.
Did you find any of them on X or Instagram? How did that search go?
I found one, what's his name? Jason Levian. I found him, but he's a private account, so you've actually got to request to follow, which I have done, but I haven't received anything. I wasn't really expecting. I do think them not being engaged with the team as compared to a lot of the other owners in the league is hurting us. The fact that the majority of them are overseas isn't great. As you said, we just don't get to see any of them. We had Kevin Martin in the early days when he signed on as an owner. He came out a couple of times. They did bring him into one of the foundation member events, so we got to meet him. I think he also did a Zoom call to one of them.
I've just found some names, guys. It shows key partners and the NBA folks. So the key partners, Ben Hahn, Jake Silverstein, Game Above Sports, which I think they're part
Never
of.
heard of them.
Yeah,
That was announced a while ago. Jason Yee, I don't recognize that name. Jason Levian is the most prominent one.
Yeah.
And so the NBA folks, there's Chris Middleton, Kevin Martin, Thaddeus Young, and George Gervin are the other ones.
Oh, he's the one that they brought out for one game and charged people $100 for a photograph.
Yeah, the Iceman.
But for me, a lot of this, like Stu Lash's appointment, I think who else would have had involvement in that other than Jason Levian? It had to be him.
Yeah, they had worked together at the Grizzlies. Yeah, they're just too far away to see what's going on behind the scenes.
And disengaged.
Disengaged. And so they're doing emails or Zoom calls and so forth. So they're not really there and knowing what's going on. And based on what they're just going by what they're being fed, how do they know that's 100% accurate? We saw from the previous CEO and the GM of basketball that clearly different bits of information were being sent through to them. So who's to say that they're not getting the full picture now? And I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not a big fan of the Phoenix's owner, but at least he's engaged with his team and the league, and you know who he is, and he has his team's back. We just don't have that, and it's quite sad.
Rami Chowdhury.
Yeah.
He's a bit outspoken at times, but yeah, at least he's out there.
Yeah.
And he's passionate. He's passionate about the team he owns, and he wants to have a say about it. Isn't that interesting? We got none of it. The Bullets are hiring a GM, yay, of commercial, which encompasses game day operations and activations and a few other things. So it was a little bit of a Betzer role. So they're handing operations over to somebody else. What are we doing with basketball? Did you guys have a look at that role?
I did have a quick look at it. Considered putting my resume in very briefly.
I didn't. I love what I do. I'm very happy to be in this part of it. Sources say, this is where it gets really interesting, and it got more and more interesting the more I read about the things about coaching that have come out in the media this week. Sources say Paul Henare was basically over the line to become the Bullets coach when they said to him, thanks, but no thanks. We're going in a different direction. Geez, that sounds familiar.
It's just horrible to think that's the case. It's frustrating to hear, and you can understand why Bullets fans are so angry when things like this get leaked. We were promised when Shula was let go that we'd be going after an experienced head coach. And then we get Lash. And this is why I wasn't a fan of the appointment. And you can understand why the majority of fans didn't like it and why they are now calling for his head. It doesn't make sense.
Paulinari was at the top of that list and he went to the ownership, I think this is when Jason Levy, and I don't know who else it could be, that went, what about Stu? And Mal was like, he has to withdraw from the selection panel and he has to put in his CV. And that's when
I do
all
believe it was Levian because Mal Watts has spoken openly about that exact process. And I do believe it was Levian who asked the question. Yeah.
yeah, and people who haven't even heard that comment by Mal about his explanation of it are going, oh, we're doing a global search and we're just a subject of ridicule. We're the butt of jokes. That's the most frustrating thing as a Bullets fan is that
Yeah.
the
And
the
rightly
observers
so.
of the league generally go, oh, you said you're doing a global search and you found someone in your office. Great. And we're just,
Yeah.
a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. And the more I think about, and we're going to speak more in the podcast about what the difference would be if we had an experienced head coach. And for me, one of the main differences is go and have a listen back to all of our press conferences this year. And our press conferences all seem very formulaic and the same old thing is rolled out each time. And go and have a look at Can's press conferences. This pains me to say it because he is my least favourite coach in the league. But he speaks so well. He knows why his team is not winning. He gives really good reasons as to what's going really well and what's not really working right now. And they are so great. And it pains me to sit there and listen to 40 speak, but I have to give the man his flowers when they're due because he sounds like a seasoned professional coach in the NBL by his press conferences. And I just haven't heard it from us.
You can
So
hear the
this
accountability when Ford speaks.
in everything. And he understands why it's happening. He knows why his team's losing. And he's happy to talk about it publicly. This is what's going on. This is what we need. We've got some really good pieces. And it's just this piece that's not working. And if we change this here and you see that happened in that quarter and you see what happens here and look at how this player plays. And if we develop this, he gives you a broad picture and he does what I've been asking the Bullets to do since day one. He takes his people along on the ride with him. I am off the Lash train because nobody's opened the doors to say, hey, come on, here's our train and let's get on it and let's ride this together. And we're all doing this together. They have basically left the doors open and we've all jumped off and now we're all standing on the platform waiting for them to invite us along again. So it feels like we're really seeing the cracks now in many areas as to why not having a seasoned head coach is not working for us. And so what we've got coming up also, we're jumping around a bit today because this is how the notes have rolled out and how things have happened as they've happened. We have a FIBA break coming up, which sounds really lovely, doesn't it? It sounds like we've got a few weeks of rest. We've got all this ability to let our players rest and recover and do some training. But is it working in our favour when we've got three players in Harrison, Smith, Milner and Dukas who are not getting the rest and who are going to have travel and minutes on their bodies?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the FIBA break. I don't like players having to go and play a non-season game in the middle of the season and putting themselves at further risk of injury. Unpopular opinion. I do not like our players going this season and playing, considering all the other injuries we've had. And one of those that going is currently injured. He's on our injured list. Why is he going? And one of the other ones has had an ankle injury that I'm still not 100% convinced is right. I get the whole pride in playing for your country thing. And normally I wouldn't be too worried about it with our team, but they need rest. There's clearly a lot of niggling little injuries sitting there that we need just that little bit of extra time to allow them to heal and get right for the next part of the season. In saying that, it's probably coming at an opportune time for the team. It's going to allow them that time to get the two new imports in place and maybe get those others that aren't going off to play the rest that they need.
I have mixed feelings about the break, and the NBL is a FIBA affiliated and aligned league. So it's kind of part of the deal. But in terms of Dukas, if he was just down the long end of the bench and if it was not big minutes, or if it was just the experience and not huge minutes.
Yeah, and it's both. I'm holding both things evenly, which is the pride of being called up for your country. And what's the point? Because nobody's aim is just to play for the NBL if they can get a Boomers call up or a Tall Blacks call up versus Bullets. I just can't see how it's going to work in our favour having those two guys out. So and there's nothing we can do about it other than express how we feel on the podcast. And now that we're on the topic of big men, I want to roll with that for a little minute. Seeing the big men in the league this season, I'm really calling on Ty to step up. I wonder if he's in the right team to develop. I'm being challenged by the amount of development I've seen in him in this season right now. We saw what happened with Rocco. First year developed well, and the second year he seemed to go backwards. And look at him now, putting up big points in the G League. And it's so great to see him finally developing and doing a great job over there. If Ty is ever going to get himself into the NBA, is this the right coaching staff to get him there? He's been huge for us from the start. He's our OG, and we can thank Sam McKinnon for his appointment because he'd had some injuries back then. He said this in the podcast too, and other people didn't want to go with him, and he said there's no way we are letting that talent go. He is an amazing talent, and we are keeping him no matter what. GM of basketball is able to make that call. Wouldn't that be lovely? And he is our OG, and he's my favourite player for that reason because we've been able to watch him develop. His hands over time have mostly got better, but I want to see more from him. I really do. And I want to see him go to the NBA and get that paycheck for his family. Not for me. I want him to stay in the Bullets. My Bullets hat wants him to stay in the Bullets. But because I've watched him grow from the young man into the man he is today, gee, I'd love to see him even a season just to go over there and get that paycheck for a season because it can really set a basketballer up for life and their beautiful family up. He needs to get better with his hands. He needs to develop in ball handling and dribbling, and he needs to be able to elevate more, which is something that Sam McKinnon said on that podcast. Go and listen. I saw a big leap in his development coming into the season, but I'm not seeing it during the season, and I'm wondering why. He can finish left or right hand, which is beautiful. His shooting percentage is excellent, but I can clearly see where he needs to develop more, and I'd like to know what is happening other than nothing. What's happening?
I have a question about how Ty is used in defense, like particularly when his opposing center is such as Jordan Hunter or Sam McKinnon. They shoot the three. Someone like Geordie Hunter, he's just at the top of the arc. He gets the ball, he shoots the three. How do we defend against that? Like in drop coverage, should someone be switching? Who should switch? I just have questions about how the coverage should work there.
Yeah, I don't think you need to switch. I think Ty needs to stay on his man and just need to make sure that that help defense is there just in case they do happen to drive past Ty.
So the help.
Yeah, that help defense. With Ty's length, he doesn't need to be right up and in on them. He can allow enough space that if they do decide to drive, he can stay in front of them, but still get a hand up in their face if they decide to shoot. There's a great thing, I think it was Kobe Bryant, who once said, when you're watching shooters shoot, you can tell whether they're going to shoot or going to drive, and it's the way their feet are set and so forth. And that would be the kind of thing that you need to be focusing on in that point, because there's no way that those guys would have their feet set properly if they're going to shoot, or if you could tell where their feet are.
And Cam, if they're going to shoot,
yeah,
what should happen though? Should he like give them?
Just get them to shoot over his hands. The guy's 7 foot.
Get your hands up. Get your hands
wall
up.
A single hand up. It's
guys,
like
I get that.
over.
Wall up.
Yeah.
But like if he gives them a couple of meters, should the help come in to put more pressure on the shooter?
No.
No. So a couple of meters is probably
enough, or not
maybe too much. Oh, it might be with his length, it actually might be good. I think him just getting his hand up at that distance should actually be enough to do. And that's not what is happening. Usually he's
So
almost
when you're in
halfway to the
juniors
bucket.
when you're in juniors as a 4-5 player, you are taught to defend with your hand up. Your hands
Yep.
are up, at least
Wall
one or
up.
two hands, and then you're watching in their triple threat position what it is they're going to do. Sometimes you will have a scout to tell where your defense will show their offense and you will play them on one side to make them drive another way. So your scout tells you what it is that you're meant to do. And they're like, this person really loves their right hand. So overplay the right, make them drive to the left and bring them into the key. And then this person is going to be there defending on that help defense because of how it's all set up. So your scout shows you what to do. But as a big player, you have the ability to run backwards and stay with your player. And I have seen Ty do it in his good nights. He
So
has
you're
that
saying he's
ability.
capable.
Ty can, because I've seen him do it. So
Yeah, he can.
I don't think help is needed on there. I don't think he needs to stay in the key. I just think our defense isn't good enough across the board, period. To shift when shifting needs to happen. We're not good enough defensively on our movement on the play as to what needs to happen. And it's unacceptable because we have scouted the team. And we know the plays. We know what they're going to run. We know the things that are going to happen in front of us. And we should have a defensive thing to do against it. It's professional basketball. It's just what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I want to see developed in Ty. I'd leave him on the 3-point line all
100%.
night. All he does is a dribble handoff. He's never been a threat other than in the post. And that's what I want to see developed. And that's what I'm really annoyed about with the coaching staff is that they're not developing this within him. I don't
Last
like
night's game, case in point. We'll talk about that more.
Pretty certain he's 100% from the 3-point line, isn't he? I've
Yeah.
only ever seen him shoot one and he made it.
Yeah.
That was the one
Pretty
that
sure you're
banked,
right.
and it was at Nissan
Yeah,
Arena.
that's the bank. Yep.
And we went off.
Yep. Yeah, so I think you've hit the nail on the head with everything you said, Tracy. I can't argue with any of that. You mentioned Rocco's development in his first year with us, and then the decline in the second. And what was the difference there? I think we know what that difference was. We had a legit big man with a wealth of NBA and Olympic experience that was there on the court with them, at training with them, pushing him and trying to help wherever he could. And you could say that Ty's growth over that period of time as well really seemed to elevate even further. And that's now gone.
Yeah. And so when we look at that, if the NBL is telling us all the time that it is a pathway to the NBA, then they're really going to have to develop him because I don't believe they are. And on that note, how much has Aaron Baines, NBA championship winning big man, how much has he got to do with the team now?
Very little. And why not?
Yeah. And all we can do is ask the question because we do not have any of the answers. But I think that is a massive mistake. And boy, oh boy, if
I
there was a
agree.
GM of basketball, would that be different? I don't know. I don't know.
Yep.
All right. So we're finally going to talk about a game that happened this week.
Oh, we've got to rip the Band-Aid, do
We're going to rip the Band-Aid, and I'm just going to read through my notes when we get to it because I had in the notes Casey Prather versus New Zealand Breakers on Wednesday night. I didn't even bother putting Brisbane Bullets. I just put Casey Prather versus New Zealand Breakers Wednesday night. This was before the game had ended. This was in the first quarter. And the crowd at that game was 2,275 people for a Bullets home game on the Gold Coast. Experiment failed.
I'm going to be very honest. I did not watch the game. I don't watch away games live. I tend to watch them after the fact. My health cannot handle some of that stuff. I've still yet to watch it, and I probably will never bother watching it. So I'm just going to let the two of you talk about it. All I can say is I was deflated after I saw the score and
We were
then
too.
seeing Prather's injury. Yeah.
We have our chat for the Bullets Nation podcast and we put our predictions in there before the game. And Brian Durbett said, we will win or we will lose by 40 as both teams are so inconsistent. And do you know what I did? When he put that in there, I laughed. I put the laughing emoji in there when he said that. Who's laughing now, Brian? Who's laughing now? So Brian won the prediction of the game. We were just like,
Picked Brian.
Yeah, well done.
All right, so I'm just going to read through my notes because we all know it. We had no big man move early. We had Harrison in dribble handoff mode. Michael Murray said in our Bullets group chat that everyone was flat-footed and our bench had no energy. No timeout in the first quarter. Bad call in my opinion.
Yeah, this comes back to the game management of the coach. Of all the things that were missing,
absolutely.
a timeout in that quarter was certainly one of those things.
Yeah. He played 10 guys in 7 minutes. Prather and Harrison were off at the same time and we were down by 12 in the first. We finally took some momentum back. It was from Jacob Holt, which was great. When are we going to realise our big men are the key? It's hard to watch PJC throw those dimes to Menenga, and we must be the worst in the league at this season. Missed opportunity for a stand-up timeout. Everyone looked checked out. Players, coaches, defence was non-existent. And this was all just from the first quarter. And my last note that I made was, and it all just kept getting worse, ... And I stopped taking notes.
Yep. I will confess to, I think I switched off at halftime because I don't think we need to see more of that atrocious defence. The Breakers had way too much space on the perimeter, like shooting threes. Like, how do you expect to be able to defend if you're going to give them that much space? If they get hot, surely you make an adjustment and go, guys, that guy's hot, and put someone on him, whoever it was. Like Rob Baker's like an import that some people are saying, oh, he's not up to scratch. He should be one of the imports that's being sacked. And he was shooting threes.
Yeah, it was bad. In the press conference, Stu Lash said that the game was an embarrassment for our fans. I'm not embarrassed. I didn't play the game. No one else I've spoken to is embarrassed. The players, the coaching staff should be the ones that are embarrassed. Words to describe the feeling within our chat group: angry, frustrated, severely lacking trust in the whole Bullets organisation, top to bottom, but no embarrassment. That one stays right where it belongs, with the one who spoke those words. We are not carrying that burden for you.
Yeah, I also didn't like the comment that Stu threw in there about them having their backs up against the wall coming out of a loss like that and having something to prove for the next game. Your backs are already up against the wall. You've been consistently inconsistent with 3 or 4 massive blowouts. It shouldn't take this type of a game to get the team in the right frame of mind, up and about, ready to go. They should already be ready to play hard every damn game, all the time. And for me, that's on the coaching staff to ensure that's where their mindset is.
Can I just clarify those blowouts? I don't want to harp on the blowouts because we're all sick of them, but there's 4, I can tell you, because they're almost hardwired in my head. I'm pretty sure in chronological order, it was Illawarra, Phoenix, I think was the next one, and then Sydney, and then Wednesday night against the Breakers. So in that order, the 2 New South Wales teams, the Phoenix, and then New Zealand. So there's 4, and we've talked about, maybe there's 2 or 3 games you flush. We've had 4, guys.
Yeah. Unacceptable. And now we're going to talk about the thing that nobody in the Bullets organisation or any of us fans want to talk about: Casey Prather's injury. So we were told it was a hardware issue, which was a good scenario when they said there's no ligaments or tendons. And I'm like, I don't understand what that means. So I jumped into ChatGPT and it was really quite helpful. So here's what it said. When they say hardware-related fixation issue, they're talking about a problem with physical bits and pieces that were put inside his knee during a previous surgery. Think metal screws, plates, anchors, pins. Athletes often have them. Sometimes the hardware becomes a problem all of its own A few common scenarios. The hardware can loosen. Even the best screws can shift a fraction of a millimeter with the force of elite basketball and start irritating bone, soft tissue, or the joint itself. It can break. Yes, metal can snap under repeated load, especially if the structure it's holding hasn't fully integrated or if an unusual force went through the joint. It can migrate. A plate or screw that moves slightly can rub, press, or poke in places it isn't meant to, creating pain, swelling, instability. It can fail to hold the original repair. That shouldn't be it because they said no ligaments. Once that happens, you get pain, swelling, mechanical symptoms, clicking, catching, giving way, or signs that on imaging saying something isn't where it should be. So essentially, the surgery he's had is going to fix or remove the faulty hardware and resecure the repair so that the knee can function properly again. Missing the season is very standard for this kind of thing. It's not usually the big injury that ends the year. It's the fact that you have to restabilize the structure, let the bone and soft tissue heal around that corrected hardware, and then rebuild strength and confidence. The long-term outlook is usually really good if the rest of the knee is healthy. Athletes come back from hardware revisions all the time. The key is giving the knee enough time to forget it ever had a mechanical tantrum in the first place. Thank you, ChatGPT.
A lot of people have comments and questions were raised about, oh, why was he even on the court? It was the fourth quarter. They were down by 30. And some people are very quick to say, oh, it's a fireable offense for the coach. And I was one of those people that was angry at the time for letting it happen. And I've since had a chance to pull myself together. There's divided views of that's sackable because he was still on the court.
Yeah, fair enough, because we've
other
lost
views,
confidence in the coach.
Yeah, other views of, oh, look, it's not Lash's fault.
Yeah. And so the next question I asked, because obviously for me, I was then like, is his 30 minutes a game that he's playing? We just said in the last podcast, we need to stop talking about our players possibly getting injured from giving too much time because it just happened. I was like, geez, that aged well, didn't it? And stop being psychic, people, because we had this and then it happened. And so the next thing I asked ChatGPT, does this usually happen from overuse or something else? He's played at least 30 minutes every game this season, and we can take the pressure off the coaches on this thing only. It's tempting to blame overuse because the bloke's been grinding through big minutes, but a hardware-related fixation failure isn't usually about too much court time. It's a bit more mechanical than that. Hardware is already in the knee from a past surgery. Screws and anchors rely on bone healing and graft integration to stay rock solid. If anything in that system wasn't perfect, even slightly, the constant forces of pro basketball can expose the weak link. So think of it like this. If a screw was seated at a slightly odd angle, if the bone density wasn't perfectly uniform, if the graft didn't integrate as strongly as expected, or if the hardware was rubbing in a high stress area, the pressure builds up over time. High minutes accelerate the timeline, yes, but they don't cause the issue. They just reveal it sooner. And it's rarely an overuse issue. It's usually the things that were just mentioned. So when we hear hardware failure, we assume he overdid it. In reality, it's more a building that looks fine until one day a hidden bolt gives way. And this kind of thing's frustrating, but it's not unusual in athletes with previous knee surgeries. The bright side is that once the hardware is fixed or removed, recovery is usually straightforward because you're not starting from scratch. You're correcting a specific mechanical issue. So this is good news, people. Good news, finally. So we can take that one off the coaches. We're not going to put that blame on them because it's simply not there, which is great to know. Thank God for ChatGPT. Otherwise, I'd be saying, I think it was the coaches too. And what has happened since then is we have had a new signing in the Unleakable Bullets organisation. It has been like a leaky boat this week. Cam, we have apparently signed Terry Taylor. What have you found out about him?
So not too much other than he's 6'4" lefty, clearly undersized big man. He says he has the most heart in the building. He's played alongside sacked Perth guard Mason Jones in the Kings Championship team. He averaged 18 points there, 9.5 rebounds, 39% from three-point line. And it's unclear if we'll have him in time for Thursday's game.
Yeah. So I love that he backs himself, and I'm really hoping that he proves us all wrong. But we've been saying all season that Casey Prather is a perfect four offensively, but defensively, he's just not quite big enough to have that role. So it will be really interesting to see what happens when he comes on in.
My hope is that if that's his size, we were wanting someone that if they're a four, that they're big enough to play the five even. And if we're talking someone this size, then Zolan Cheatham at the 36s, he's 6'5", but he is athletic enough to compete with fours that are bigger than him. You look at the way he leaps for rebounds and blocks. Is Terry Taylor that athletic? That's what I'm keen on finding out.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. So much happened after that game. And this is when I started thinking during the week, it's time for some hypotheticals. You guys have asked some hypotheticals. Wouldn't it be fun? Let's do one now. And I wondered, what would you do if you're in charge of the Bullets for a day? If you were just like, here's the keys to the Bullets organisation, what would you do? Here's what I would do, because it feels a lot like a sinking ship at the moment. So if I was to right this ship, the first thing I would do is I would sit Nashy and Brooke down and I would apologise them for giving them a job that they weren't ready for. I would apologise for trying to go in a direction that was not right for the club and the fans have spoken clearly. And then I would bring back Jonny Drama. Because I know that if I did that, our game days automatically will shift to being great. There will be a standing ovation on that day when he walks back into that arena and says, "G'day, Bullets fans." So that's the first thing that I would do. I would then ring up Errol Sinetta and I would say, if you won't come back full time, can you please come in and can I just contract you to choreograph the routines? And can you help us with that intro? Can you make us an intro? He used to do all of the mixing, all of the music, and he did such an incredible job. And he is still out there working with basketball teams in Brisbane. So I would bring him in. So there's two things I would do. I would hire a GM of basketball in my one day. I would find one, I would get them in the position, and the credentials would be you must be a legitimate great basketball mind, which we know they either are or they aren't. No more experiments. I would have a conversation with the owners about being more visible within the fan experience and ask them to hire and start looking at right now a tried and tested successful head coach who's had success turning a team around like Josh King has. Not even a tried and tested great head coach. I now want someone who can turn a team around from a long-term losing streak to winning. Josh King has, and I would have a new motto. I would put a new motto in to our organisation: no more experiments.
And I would have a big sign with bold print that says that on above the whiteboard in the team's meeting room. But the one thing I want in the club's management, if that's from the GM especially, is due diligence, background checks. Like Melbourne United, there's something I read somewhere that they try and find 10 contacts of a potential new signing. I think it's probably more imports that they do this. I don't know if it's like 10 sounds like a lot, but they do their due
Not
diligence.
when you're striving for excellence, Scott. Not when you're striving for excellence. And when we hear in the media again, when they were talking about Paul Hanare, they had him over the line. They also said Bullets were informed about Jalen Adams before he was signed. They said very clearly, we warned you about all of the issues that he had in Sydney. And I heard, I can't remember who I heard this from. I think it might have been Damon Lowry or somebody else. They said everyone underestimates when he had his MVP season with Sydney. There was another import there whose name I cannot remember
Jarrell
who
Martin.
managed, thank you, Jarrell Martin, who managed Adams the whole time. Everyone says it was coach who got the best out of him, but there are those in the know who say it was actually Jarrell Martin who did all of that. And as soon as Jarrell Martin left, that's when you saw everything slide from Adams. And the Bullets were made aware of this and they still made the call to bring him in.
But I think someone else said Adams was like the fifth choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want
bad.
due diligence. I want, yeah, because even that your coach that you love to hate, Tracy, Adam Ford, he says he checks injury history. I've also heard it said that,
Knowing.
like, people have said Adam's back has been shot for 2 years. Like, even last season, you could see he's had issues with his back. So, yeah, there's issues with his commitment and whatever. And when he was at the Kings, people have said they just let it slide when he was late for team meetings and stuff. If the Bulls didn't know about that, they're not doing their homework.
Yeah, it was said that they wrote that into his contract, that if he had problems, though, it was easier to get out of the contract.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened there? Cam, would you change anything if you were there, hypothetical for a day? Anything else?
Nothing else. Everything that you've said, I think is where I would go as well. You're on the money there.
Yep. All right, let's get to the next game. We had another game versus Melbourne United. Crowd, 8,930 people. We were quick out of the blocks. When the defense is half asleep in the opposition, our shooters look really great. And as soon as the pressure was amplified, our shooting percentage really dropped considerably.
Yeah, we just don't seem to be able to adjust our offense when the opposition really ramps up their defensive pressure. And we've stated this before. Why is it the case?
Yeah, we haven't improved in that area. Our defense simply isn't good enough. I do believe with Sam McDaniel, we can absolutely be better. But I have to ask myself now, there are 8 other guys at the top of our rotation. And what are you actually doing out there? And why does it take somebody else to come in and play elite defense for your defense to get better? So I'm all for one player making a massive change, but what the hell is going on right now for the rest of them that they cannot play elite defense?
I think we can play defense. We've seen it. I saw it this game. The problem is they only seem to be able to play it in small patches. And that's where I think Smack's influence will be beneficial. He will just keep the others going. It also means that with him back, you've got guys who are currently starting playing extended minutes who are probably not quite there yet where we need them to be defensively due to they're young, they're inexperienced, they've not played in a competition that is this physical. So I think once we get him and once they go back to the bench, they'll be able to push that little bit harder on both ends of the floor for shorter periods of time. So I think that'll actually add a little bit more balance there to that defense.
Yeah, just a shame that it takes somebody else coming in for it to happen.
Yeah.
I think we keep coming back to a team like United, their defense, we hold our own to them for a quarter, but then Vickerman, he makes adjustments because he's an experienced coach and he knows what he's doing. But do we adjust to the adjustments that have been made by the other team? Not so much.
Yeah. And so that's what I asked. The next question was, is it the coaches or the coverage? Right now, it seems we need a coach that can direct the team more. Dean Vickman, case in point. Josh King, case in point. Take over the game, and I want really clear sets. This free-flowing offense isn't working. They look so much better when I know they're running a play. But then we go on a run, and our coach subs out 3 men.
I agree. It's just where having that experienced coach really helps. We shouldn't have a head coach who is still learning these things on the fly and having to lean on his assistant so much. He should be able to make decisions then and there as he's seeing them. And I don't think he's at that level yet or anywhere close to that level yet.
You could also see the defense of United, the further into the game it got, the more relentless defense was of just tightening the screws on the Bullets when we had the ball, like just to get over halfway and then get past the 3-point arc to try and penetrate.
Yep, we're an easy scout. I felt like Holt had no answers for Edwards on defense. Offensively, he looked great and I really liked what I see, and I'm so excited to see him develop further, but I thought that was a big hole last night.
Yeah, he looks out of shape for me at the moment, but you can see that sort of rough outline of what's going to be a very good player. Still learning the league, clearly learning where he needs to be defensively and being able to slide better with those quick big men like Edwards. I believe he will get better. It's just going to take some time.
We got to that point in the game, and it was our champion Nordo who said, "Don't look at the score, keep your focus on how you show up for your team." He seems to be the one who led the charge home, and what a charge it was.
Leadership. That's what he brings. Every time he makes a key play, he leads by example, but he reminds us of what he missed when he was out injured, and that includes his leadership. But you can see when he talks in the timeouts, in the huddles, and at the end of the game, in that post-game huddle, you look at the way he speaks, and that's a leader.
100%. It just shows how much we missed having him out on that court. It hurts.
And he was doing all of those things from the sidelines when he was injured. But the difference is he earns respect from his playing group when he is out on the floor leading the way from the front. And this, again, is another really interesting case for experience in a head coaching role. Lamar hits 2 threes in a row and then gets subbed out and sits down. I was chuckling through this whole broadcast because Gazy was having a go at Stu's coaching choices throughout the match. I think Gazy was telling us nicely through that entire broadcast that he thinks it's time Brisbane got a new head coach as well.
He's subtle and diplomatic. Gazy. Love him.
Yeah. It's now blatantly obvious for everyone to see that he's out of his depth.
Yeah, because that run was on the back of Nordo. Like, he was the one who inspired his team from everything that we heard and saw. But their effort was excellent. We shot at 45% from the 2, 42% from the 3, 72% from the free throw line. And how about that disparity? In Melbourne United went to the line 36 times and we went 11. So the coach, once again in the press conference, said the players are not getting the level of respect they deserve from the refs. So now it's the refs' fault. We had 77 field goal attempts and Melbourne had 74. Is it imbalance? Is it the refs, or is it the difference of a top-rated defensive team in the league versus the team who has been lowest for almost 10 years and now 8th in the league? I really think you can blame the refs as much as you like, but let's look at the whole picture and pan the camera back.
I'm not sure if it was a complaint as much as needing to highlight that difference. This isn't the first time this season we've had massive differences in the foul counts go against us. There are definitely teams out there who are allowed to play far more physically, and not just against us, but against every other team they come up against. And it's that kind of inconsistency in the refereeing where it's being called differently at both ends that caused the frustration among fans. So I've got no issue with Lash calling it out. I think he should. Other coaches have done it this season and it's worked for them. Look at what Tatum did when he called out the way McGee was being treated and the way the refs weren't calling things on him. It definitely helped there. The New Zealand coach called it out again last night as well because there was a massive disparity in the foul count there as well. So for me, this was more of something that Lash has actually done right here in calling it out. He can't use it as an excuse for the loss or anything like that. If that's what he was trying to do, you can't do that. But to call it out and have it raised and getting it out there, I think is definitely the right thing to be doing.
Yeah, and so Vickerman in his press conference was asked how he saw the calls and the imbalance of the fouls, because Lash said Melbourne always gets away with those fouls. And Vickerman's answer was, we play with physicality. We expect the refs to call fouls if we're overstepping the mark. And he noted that they got 3 fouls in a row in one 24-second shot clock when they were defending at one end. So he didn't see it as that big of a deal. He went on then to say that the refs are allowing them to play with physicality this season. And their team had a focus on going hard in the paint and they got rewarded for that. He can see why they got it because that was their game plan. He looks at it as the best coach in Australia in the NBL and just goes, tick, we did our job. That was our scout. That's what we wanted to do. Bullets haven't been great in the paint because they don't use the paint because their big man's up doing dribble handoffs on the 3-point line. So they're an easy scout and we're just going to go hard at them because every team that has done well in there and defensively, they're not good enough to stop us without fouling. The whole time Shayla was sitting next to him shaking his head about the remarks, just going whatever. I also do think they do get a favourable whistle every now and then. Like more often than not, if it goes 50-50, they're going to get it. The Perth and the Melbournes of the world have always got it.
A little bit of home cooking, big market team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say, of course, Illy's going to sit there and go, yeah, and shake his head. For me, he gets away with a lot more than pretty much a lot of other players out there. Yeah, I just think defensively, he'd still be up there as one of the best. He'd be fouling out a lot more if they actually called him the same way as they called a lot of other players.
Yeah. For me, though, a team that's striving for excellence doesn't blame anyone ever. I'm getting really tired of this narrative. Saying you're not complaining, but you've spent the last 8 minutes of a press conference complaining and giving reasons, the same old reasons, and none of them are your responsibility. It's really wearing on me. Great coaches in our position, I believe, would say something like this. Every team faces quick turnarounds, tough stretches, and whistles not going their way. That's part of the league. Our job is to be prepared, to adjust, and to keep improving no matter the schedule or the circumstances. We didn't execute at the level we needed to, and that's on me. The buck has to stop up there. My role is to ensure our group is physically and mentally ready to perform every time we step on the floor. We'll review, recover, and be better next time. And to be honest, if Vickerman went into a press conference complaining about the refs, he has earned the respect to be listened to because he's coach of the year many times and he has earned the respect as the head coach and championship winning head coach that he is. Yep. To be listened to in that scenario.
He's got the runs on the board.
He's totally got the runs on the board and we just don't. And so I think it's going against us in more areas than one. Taking absolutely nothing away from the team and their effort in this game, it was excellent. There is so much to be proud of and excited about. And most of it came down to effort. It wasn't our offense or our defense. It was the effort. They upped it and they were rewarded for that. And I can't help but wonder, now after the week that we've had and everything we've just spoken about, if we had an experienced head coach with that kind of effort, would we have won that game?
You know my answer to that, Tracy. And yes, we've been out-coached a few times this season. And even when Justin Schuller was coach on overtime, Liam Santamaria commented on a game we played against Tasmania and Scott Roth out-coached them at that time too and said they got out-coached. And that's the price that we're paying. And the early games in the season, away in Cairns and at home against Tasmania, those were close games. I think those were ones that got away because if the coaching was done differently, my armchair expert opinion is things could have been managed differently. And yes, it's a loss. It's an L. There's positives that have come out of that game. We got within striking distance. We got as close as 6 points, and then I think it was a 9-point margin in the end.
Yeah.
But the defense of United, it's just relentless. So against them, you really need to come out of the box firing. The second and third quarters highlighted how you need to play for 4 quarters.
Yeah, I agree. Great fight back. As you said, some positives there to take out of that game. 100% we need an experienced head coach, and having that would probably have turned this game into a win and maybe a couple of those others. I also don't think we would have been as far behind to begin with that experienced head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, on to our next game. We have one game before the FIBA break, and that's Thursday night. And we play the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that was one of those blowouts last time. It didn't end well. And I'm trying to just imagine what's the best way to tackle it in terms of how the approach should be best taken in terms of should it be just mind over matter, out physical the physical aspect of the Phoenix's game, their physicality, out physical their physicality. Just mangling the words there, but like John Brown, guys like him, you've got to be prepared for that kind of opponent.
Yeah, what's scary is last time they thumped us, I'm pretty certain they did it without Glover.
True.
He's now back in, so that's pretty scary. They just need to bring the same level of effort that they did and that they were showing in the fourth quarter against United. They do that and we will win. Just focus defensively on keeping Phoenix off that 3-point line. They're one of the best in the league at the moment. Their backs are still up against the wall. So come out and show us that your backs are up against the wall and keep that same effort. That's not going to change until they start winning consistently. And for me, it's on the coaching staff to ensure that the players are coming out the right way and keeping that going the entire game, making those changes when they need to early before things get out of hand.
Yeah. For me, we've got fresh bodies and no more excuses. We've got plenty of time to train, get ready for one single game before the FIBA break. Single focus, this is an absolute must-win game, in my opinion. There is absolutely no reason that we should not win this game at home, and I will not accept any excuse, and I will not accept a loss this time. I really won't. This is it for the Bullets, in my opinion. We've played them before. We know that it's going to be full court, high intensity, man-on-man defense. It's going to bring a level of physicality that makes us crumble. Plan for it. You've got one game to plan for, nothing to think about after that. You get rest after that. Make it happen, Bullets. Make it happen. It's unacceptable to have anything but a win this Thursday night.
I agree.
Now we move on to who needs to back themselves.
I'm going with the entire team. I just said it. They need to show the same effort that they did against United in the fourth quarter of that game. They now need to do it for an entire game. We've seen you can do it in patches. Now do it for an entire game against a very good opponent. Time to start earning the respect back of your fans.
Yeah. So other than the coach and the whole organisation, I am calling on Dukas to step up this time. I want more out of him. He gets a little lazy and a little scrappy sometimes, and I'm asking him to back himself because I can see those moments of the brilliant player that he is. He really is. And I want him to back himself. I want him to hold his head high, and I want him to stay focused for the entire game. So that's who I'm calling on this game.
Yeah, it's the two for me are Dukas and Matthias. I've seen mention of his passing and offense could be a bit sloppy. And so I hope that he can tidy that up and just tweak it so it's cleaner. Yeah. Last week I recommended that podcast. This week I saw a documentary on ESPN. It's called Imported. It basically follows and interviews American import basketballers who are playing in various leagues around the world, including Australia. There was an American guy, I think it's NBL 1. It looked like a New South Wales team, judging by things that I saw in the background. But I just found it fascinating because we all love the imports and what they bring to the league.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same without him. All right, I'll put it on the watch list. Okay, let's send our thoughts and prayers out to Casey Prather. Everyone's worried that he won't sign for the Bullets again. If anyone does not sign him, they will be immediately sacked.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of interest. Like
in my
non-Brisbane
hypothetical
fans,
world, they are sacked.
yeah, there's plenty of fans and people who are not Brisbane fans who are saying he should go to Melbourne or he should go elsewhere in that. And so hands off, he's ours.
Yeah, I do have it on very good authority, and it may have come straight from the horse's mouth that they prefer Brisbane. They love Brisbane and everything about Brisbane. So I'm really hanging on to those words in that they have no need or reason to change. Ariana can get a job anywhere, but she has it very sweet. The position that she's in is taken up in other states, and she has a really key position here in Queensland. And I just don't think they would leave here if
I just wanted
they
to
didn't,
like
they weren't forced
particularly
to.
emphasize like Ariana's post and like that collectively the Prathers, they're a class act.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
king and
and
queen of
Ariana.
Brisbane Bullets is all
Yep.
I'm ever going to call them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not the king and queen of the NBL, because I want them to be the king and the queen of the Brisbane Bullets for a long time to come.
I agree.
Yeah. So our thoughts are absolutely with them and with Casey, and just rest up, do what you need to do. And we are ready for your return next season when you are ready to come do that deal early, Bullets GM. So thank you for joining us again on this episode of Bullets Nation podcast. My God, has it been a week? Can we just have a game and win it this week and just come in and talk about that
Next
episode?
week's.
Remember that we have, which is getting very active now, our group chat for away games and for any time. That's where I got the new signing material from this morning, thanks to Mitchell. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Bullets Nation podcast.